it seemed so out of reach for me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, that's the idea of it possibly happening was cool, but the reality of where I was, it was like not, like, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm going to be one day.
But ultimately the hard work, the grind, the grit, the almost strong-headedness of just trying that same thing over and over again to achieve this desired outcome, that's actually what we're looking for. So, I think about all the other specialties I could have gone into, and a big driver was I needed consequence. I needed it to matter.
His work was a little more addiction focused than mine, but in the same realm, so I was the missing piece of what he was looking for, and he was the missing piece that I was looking for, so it kind of meshed well.
That's right, yeah. We'll leave out the part where you left me on red for a couple years.
He hit me up months before, and I didn't even, I read it, and I just didn't respond.
Right.
So.
He's
this chump trying to hit me up.
I felt shame, like I went home and like cried in the shower where nobody could hear me.
That's a lie.
I'm Jess Machado. I'm one of the RNs on the complex pain and substance use team at VGH. I've been a nurse for the past 10 years. I work in the downtown east side at a correctional facility, so at jail there, and some union work and occupational health and safety stuff.
And really, Jess runs the show.
Right. I kind of got that.
Yeah, you got the sense of that.
Just got the feel.
You got the feel. You got
the vibe.
You got the vibe. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, we can pick up where we were just talking, or we can maybe let's get a little bit of background first. Maybe I think that would be helpful to provide context. You're from Vancouver originally.
Yeah.
Is there where you grew up as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Born, raised.
And where did you do your training?
So I did most of my training here at UBC, medical school at UBC, residency at UBC, and then I went and spent a year at Stanford doing my subspecialty work, and then came back to take the job.
Got you. Okay. And for people who may not know, like in terms of like the years involved for training.
So medical school comes after undergrad. So 4 years of university, 4 years of medical school, 6 years of neurosurgery, and then a year of subspecialty training.
Yeah. And it's not like, I lost track of the number of years, but it's not like 9 to 5 days those years, right?
So residency, there are rules. Things have changed a bit, but it's still pretty much your entire life. We average 100-hour, 110-hour weeks.
Yeah, it's no joke. Yeah.
It's intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, and high stress hours too, right? It's like and you grew up in Singapore.
Yeah, I was in Southern Ontario for a bit. That's where I was born, in Southern Ontario, and then I moved to Singapore in like 91, and then started skating there and moved back. And end of 97, I was going to UBC for a little bit, but then skateboarding started knocking, and I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then I finished the school year, and just went full skate for the last 2 decades.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just carry on where we were talking, because I think what you were describing is super interesting to me, because you're picking residents for the neurosurgery program, and you're talking about striving towards excellence, and how, like, if somebody has achieved excellence and like you provide a violin.
So I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to there's like the innate ability piece, and you need someone who's smart enough and has good hands, those things. But most of neurosurgery is teachable,
right?
And it's a trade. I'm a plumber, and it's just about doing whatever it is, the 10,000 hours, putting in the work, and having that. I want to use the word obsessive because you guys in the mental health frame have your own words for that, but like just having that total focus on the end goal, and targeting basically perfection in that realm. And most of what we're looking for when you got a bunch of kids looking to do this, you're looking for the people that have the grind to just knuckle under, focus, push through the hard times, through the the discomfort and everything, and not dissimilar to any other high level thing where it's just about grit will get you a lot of the way there. Now, I'd argue, having tried, that skating, there's more to it than that, because I was never good at it despite trying. Not trying obsessively, but still trying. So I think there's probably more innate ability necessary there in some ways, but still there's no way anybody just is like gets on a board and nails it.
Well, and it's fun. Like what you're sounding, it doesn't sound fun at
it's
all.
Fun.
You like that, doing that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
That's probably why I'm still doing it.
Wow.
Sudden realization.
Today's the day.
Yeah. No, I mean, like like a lot of the reason why people skate is because it's fun to do, and you're outside doing it and stuff like that.
But I would argue.
A lot of it's not fun.
I would argue about that as well. That's right.
Well, that is also fun. That's part of it. That's part of it. I mean, that when you get it turns into more of a job and stuff, then it like as you get older and you're like 40 and the $250 a month isn't really doing much for your mortgage, that isn't fun. And then the grind of that isn't fun at all. But the actual skating part is like.
Some might argue, and I'll challenge that a little bit, that there's a lot about skateboarding that wouldn't stereotypically be categorized as fun.
Falling?
Oh, I know.
And also, like,
it's fun.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
I know what it is. Yeah, like I know what it is. Fun. I mean, falling sucks.
Yeah.
But it's part of it, and the overall experience you're having. Unless you're like did your knee in or something, then it's not fun at all. But the getting back up part and being able to do it, if it's not a serious fall, then it's fun.
Well, I mean, let's go back to basics when it comes to skateboarding, because, and I think this is going to be an important discussion because it can illustrate some of the personality traits of skaters. And I'd be interested to see if you can relate to that from a neurosurgery or neurosurgeon perspective, because like, what is the most basic trick or move in skateboarding?
Well, I mean, the Ollie, or you could push.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just say the Ollie.
Ollie.
Right. Use any other sport like basketball. Like it would be equivalent to getting a basket, maybe in basketball, or like hitting a ball in baseball.
Well, I mean, I guess so.
Yeah, but like if somebody wants to pick up basketball, they're going to get baskets the first day. Right. It's going to happen. Right. You're going to do a layup, but like how long does it take to learn how to Ollie? Like
he's like, I'm a professional.
Well, again, there's not many people will be able to do it in first day. Not like 90 something, whatever high 90% won't do it in the first couple like weeks.
I would say
months.
And like the average kid, it would probably take some weeks to learn how to do an Ollie. Right? And
as kids will learn quicker than adults will, because there's obviously the risk level's a little larger. But kids will. Yeah. That's why every generation that goes by, these kids are just doing what we did as like it's nothing. Yeah. So that it varies between age and stuff as well.
No, that's true. But I guess the point that I'm getting at is skateboarding isn't necessarily a lot of fun unless you can learn how to do an Ollie, because many of the tricks are based on the Ollie, right?
I don't know, because there's different types of skating that don't require an Ollie that are just as fun.
But is there anything you can do that like the first day you get on a board? Like other than the idea.
Never stopping. You've never stood on a board before?
Yeah, the first day sucks.
Well, yeah, because.
So does the second day.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, that's yeah.
Many days in a row.
Yeah. Well, the learning curve is pretty steep, but then it's like playing guitar. I think you're like you can't find the damn strings or whatever, but then once you start finding the rhythm of your fingers, you can like kind of move easily between them, and it's the same thing, and then once you learn the basic, like ollies and stuff, or bowls, because you can carve bowls, it's a feeling thing, right? And then you start grinding. You don't even need to ollie ever. Yeah. Like you do, some guys will skate bowls, probably don't even know how to ollie.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So there's different levels to it. I mean, in the bowl section, you can roll and at least get some of the transitions,
Yeah.
But
I guess what I'm getting at, there's a strong element of delayed gratification in skateboarding. Right? Because you're pushing through maybe weeks, trying to learn the Ollie, because once you Ollie, it sort of opens the door to many other things you can do on a skateboard. But I feel like that process of learning how to Ollie may not necessarily be a lot of fun, but it's like you're doing it for multiple reasons, right? So And I think that's something that people may not recognize in terms of skateboarders' traits, because skateboarders are often, I think, looked at as like this impulsive kids who are like hyperactive, etc. But like delayed gratification is something that's like really important in medicine, getting to medical school as well, right? I mean, like the grind of getting into med school is.
Yeah, you're definitely putting off other things, and you're investing in something down the road.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think when you start skating, the idea of being a sponsored skater or a pro might be a little different than if you're starting your journey in neurosurgery.
Right. Thinking what do you mean?
Well, I mean, I'm just, when I'm thinking of it, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going out and having fun with my friends every day, and like, I don't need to go to school. I just want to, well, I mean, I went to school, but just like learning, it seems less, I don't know, it seems like less important in the whole scheme of like the world.
Yeah, yes and no, right? Like, I think it's interesting because for the kid, I'm just, from my perspective, I'm like,
It's very internally
driven.
Yeah, not
Right?
so much like.
Yeah. And that's a super important point as well, I think, because that internal drive, because many other sports or activities, like music, for instance, you'll have the parent telling the kid, okay, no, you can't do anything else until you practice your violin. Or like, okay, time to get up and go to practice. You can't be late for practice.
You don't see a lot of parents sending their kid outside. Don't come back in till you've skated for 4 hours.
That's right. Right?
Well, maybe now with the Olympics and stuff, but
That you're more recognized.
Still,
It's a change.
it's
Yeah.
changing, but I think that internal drive is and self-discipline is something that's like super important for skateboarding, because if you're the individual that needs to be pushed and needs structure and needs to be scheduled, you're not going to gravitate towards skateboarding, I don't think, because that doesn't really exist anywhere in skateboarding, except unless maybe at the very highest levels of like the Olympics.
oh man, I see the guys that are like super skilled, like they just probably learned how to do all this stuff and within a matter of months, you know what I mean? And then they skated for 10 years and then they're just so bored of what they're doing that they just like, go do other things, stop skating, and then come back every once or twice a year and skate and are at the same level. It's just, I don't know if I mean, it'll get them to a point, but then they like, all right, we know the feelings that it's bringing us, and we have to find something else because they're kind of, they couldn't find it anymore, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not like that because I've been doing it. I keep doing it. I
Yeah.
can't
What
stop doing
what
it.
made you want to be a professional skateboarder? Did you like have an idea like this is what I want to do? I'm gonna
No,
go down this?
I was in Singapore, so there was no pros there. We had no internet. There was no nothing. And we were looking at, and we were like 5 years behind in the videos and the magazines that were coming out. So we wouldn't. It seemed so out of reach for me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. That's the idea of it possibly happening was cool, but the reality of where I was, it was like not like it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm gonna be one day.
So it kind of just happened organically.
Yeah, which is how I want it to. That's how it should happen. Because if you have like get into be pro, then it's like, I don't know, kind of, I mean, there's an end goal, but I don't know, that's the argument of the whole time is like why we get into what we're doing. You want to get in it to make money and be a pro. That's the wrong reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no end goal. And it only, when I moved here and started filming with George and stuff, it was, there was a possibility of it happening. And that's when I started trying, but then, still there was no internet, nothing. So I have no contacts in the US to any of the companies at all. Besides like Kevin's Ultimate and all these distributions here. And it's just on the whim. So I'll send you. We had to make sponsor me tapes, like of our demo tapes of our skating, and just cross your fingers and send it down. And hopefully, but everybody in the planet was probably doing it.
Yeah, like think of it as like a medical school application.
Is that what you did to get into UBC? Just made it.
Send us a video.
Tape. Start making tape.
Just say, yeah, you're doing surgery through the nose. Just like this will work. Yeah.
How did you get into yours though too?
Well, it's a very organized system, right? You apply to medical, you go to university, you apply to medical school, you do medical school, you go into this like matching system where you apply to various specialties in various places. But, you know, similarly, I kind of stumbled through the whole thing. I went to university and applied to medical school because, I don't know, I didn't like doing research and I'd done science. And then in medical school, thought I was, you know, had a mentor who was a plastic surgeon, and then didn't really like it when I actually had the opportunity to do it. And neurosurgery was sort of the thing I gravitated to the most, I guess, but came to it very late and kind of stumbled into it and then stumbled through it. And I think that's part of what you're talking about. It's like the number of kids that at age 5 decide they want to be neurosurgeons. Most of them don't know what they're talking about, and they actually have no idea what they like. The goal is the ones that are successful and very good are the ones that fall into it organically because the type of work, the personality, those things mesh with it, right? As opposed to wanting to be a pro skater. It sounds cool or it's going to make your parents proud. It's like, you know, the things you have to do day in, day out are what, you know, jive with your personality.
Yeah.
I think that's true for everything.
No, it's true. And I think it's because, again, like if I'm approaching it from like the average skater's perspective, not a professional skater, somebody who just has done it for fun, there's a real distinction between professional skateboarders, people who make that level, and like the average skater. And like I think the professionals have this thing that the rest of us don't have. And they can do things the rest of us can't. And I think there's like, it's interesting to analyze because I think there's, again, like certain traits that they may have that others don't. I think surgeons or neurosurgery may be similar, that there's like certain things you need to be able to like function as a neurosurgeon that kind of might set you apart from.
Yeah, I think some of it is like, you know, actual, like there are some people who are, you know, we say they have good hands, but actually most of it, you need a certain level. And then a lot of it beyond that is just the strong-headedness, willing to grind to get there, right? You know, like you learn how to do something and you do it over and over again. You come in at 2 a.m. to do it. You come in when you're not supposed to be working because it's happening, and then you can do it. And then you move on to the next thing, and you're always pushing yourself. You're always pushing for perfection. And I think that sort of innate drive for perfection is not something that you can teach someone. Whereas, you know, that comes from somewhere in them. I don't really understand where. And that's why I always look for people who've done that in some other avenue of their life, right? Because if you can do it, it means you've got whatever that secret sauce is. The rest of it we can mostly teach you. You know, some people don't have a mind for it. Some people don't have the hands for it. But I think that's easier to make up than having, I don't know if you want to call it the wrong attitude or the wrong drive or whatever those internal motivators are.
Do you think is there anybody that, you know, like goes through that whole process of getting into the schools and being a neurosurgeon and stuff, and then they're like, oh, I don't like this anymore, and then they do something totally different, like go sell washing machines or something?
That is a really great question.
Yeah.
Well, because that happens in skating. You go through this whole thing. You finally go pro. You're pro for a year, and then either your ego gets in there, or the style you have isn't working, and then you're just no money, and you're like, okay, now I have to like.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I think there are people who pursue it in that way, like striving for this, and then at a certain point, it just flips to just being a job, and they'll get a job somewhere and they'll do basically the simplest things, the easiest things, try and come in, you know, just like everybody else, try being there from 9 to 5, you know, you don't want to stress yourself out. You don't want to take on harder things. And so there are people that have very, I don't know, limited practice. And then there's other people who are always striving, always pushing, trying to do new things, you know, kind of pushing the envelope. Same with skating, right?
Yeah.
Always innovating, always moving. And that's the thing that comes from inside. But I don't think it's pretty rare for someone to bail all the way out because, you know, it's a pretty, you know, solid career. And you can actually do, you know, have it as like a base job and, you know, and not push it that far.
Right.
Once you're done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with skating, like
and the attrition rate, like about a third of people don't finish and start work, right? So there's a lot of people that go through 4 or 5 of the 6 years of base training and then out.
Does that mean they're still a doctor and they can do other things?
Yeah, so they'll go and,
Don't say psychiatry. Don't say psychiatry.
I don't think we've ever had someone transfer to psych. We've had people transfer into all sorts of things.
Yes.
And,
Odd job.
but usually they don't transfer into other surgeries. So it's not like they're like, oh, this isn't exactly for me, but I want to keep this general idea. It's like they're like full on left turn, like I'm going to be a radiologist or I'm going to,
Interesting.
work in the emergency department or whatever. Just like it's a total path shift. So it's rare if you make it all the way to the end. But I think if you think of the number of people who aspire to be pro skaters, lots of them just go and get regular jobs or whatever along the way, right?
Yeah.
And not always because they can't do it. Just sometimes it's just like, meh.
I remember reading something when I would skate West Beach ramp on West 4th back in 2000. There was a sign on the thing. It's like 1 in a million people will make a career out of this pro stuff. Every single day I go in and skate, I would look at this stupid sign.
So did that motivate you, or did that?
No, it was like, oh,
It won't be me.
Yeah, it won't be me.
Well, that grit that you were talking about, it's really interesting to see that in skateboarding because you see these, I don't know if you've seen these videos, but like skaters trying a move over like a stair set or a handrail and over and over and over again. Like how many times, what made somebody try something before they finally landed? Like
hundreds. I mean, I've done 9, 10, 1,000 tries, multiple days, months. Yeah.
But here's the thing, like every time you fall, it's not like, okay, like you missed the basket. Like you fall, you land on stairs, like concrete, and there's pain and there's damage, and then you get up right away and you go, and like, by you, I don't mean me, I mean these professionals. They'll go and they'll do it again and again and again. And
Makes you do that.
Insanity.
That's right.
Yeah. Isn't that what the definition
I wish you had a screen we could show you some of the images of like what these guys do, and like there's real risk, right? It's not just perceived risk, but and people get hurt bad doing it, but it doesn't stop them.
No, when you do, some people thrive on that.
That's right.
That struggle, but I mean, when you do the thing that you are set out to do, it's like so many of those moments are like, oh man, this is amazing, and then it's an extension of who you are, really, so.
But those are two personality traits that I think that are very similar. That grit, like getting called at 2, 3 a.m., going in, doing the surgery, rounding on your patients the next day, not going home, right? I mean, it's nuts what some of these guys have to do.
Well, we have to go up, not maybe 2 a.m. just so we don't get kicked out.
That's right.
Skating VGH at the stairs in the front.
It's so true. And then the consequences, like I remember when the pharmacy building was just built across the street from the medical school, I was staff at that point. I was attending and I had just gotten my board. And I was skating at the pharmacy building and there were some other skaters there. And then security shows up, right? And then, of course, all the skaters scatter. And I'm like, I didn't run. So I'm standing there. I'm like, I'm not going to run. Like I could,
That would look odd with your lab coat
You should
flapping
have.
in the wind.
and then what happened was
Traitor.
the thought that went through my mind is,
Beat him up.
it's like, they're going to take your skateboard away.
Hold on.
Is that an airplane?
It's the helicopter probably landing at the hospital.
Okay. Does that mean you have to go?
Do you need a run? Step.
Your mic closer to yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe.
I keep leaning back front, or I can sit up.
Just
and
relax. Yeah.
We'll just let the helicopter. Are we good?
Still a little.
Gives it like some color, makes it edgy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ghetto. Yeah.
But the thought that went through my mind was, they're going to take your skateboard away. So immediately I went back to like 14-year-old Puya who used to get his skateboard taken away by police and security guards. So I started blasting down the street, running from security.
So you did run.
I did run at the end. And then I caught myself like 2 blocks down and then I stopped and I was just laughing to myself because like at any other day, I could be across the street lecturing to medical students at the medical school building. But there in that moment, I was defined as this like punk kid who like needs to run from security. So I think skateboarding defines you as a person, like maybe unlike any other sport. I don't know, that was kind of a tangent, but.
Well, no, that's like you win the Olympics. You can win the Olympics. And
That's right.
Go out skating the next day and get arrested.
Yeah. So,
like-
But I think in some ways that's similar, right? Because one of the reasons that we do what we do is to belong to something, right? And it's like, skaters are a thing. Like our trainees, they think of themselves as like the hardest of the hard.
That's right.
It's the Navy SEAL thing, right? The only difference between skating, Navy SEALs, and us is we're taking risk with other people. You're taking risk with yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
But that element of risk still
The risk
exists.
is there, but it's
there,
it
but-
is different.
But it's also interesting because, okay, like some of the stuff these guys do, it's almost like, death consequence activities, right? Like some of the stuff, like if you put 1 foot wrong, like you could die, right? So that I think that does something neurobiologically. And some of the stuff you do, I assume, if you put one hand wrong, you could kill a patient, right? So you're living with that consequence.
But does it do something to you neurobiologically, or is that part of
Why you
what
do it?
makes it
Well,
worth
you
it, right?
tell me, yeah.
I think about all the other specialties I could have gone into, and a big driver was I needed consequence. I needed it to matter, right? You come in at 2 a.m. because someone broke their finger. I'd just be like, honestly, I just don't care.
You are turning that page off.
Yeah, whereas someone's, there's serious consequence. Someone's going to die. All right, that's, I need the adrenaline. And at a certain point in your life, you
Adrenaline.
no longer need the adrenaline. But certainly early on, it's like a huge driver of it.
That's right. So
So
like,
what are you feeling at that point when you're like doing that at 2 a.m? Because I want to parallel it. Like, are you guys feeling the same thing? Is that what's happening?
All right, you're just doing.
You're just doing
Oh yeah. You have to shut off. You have to.
flow state.
Well, I mean, if you're like stressed out about something you're trying to do, this stair set or something, you keep thinking about it. You're not gonna go. You have to like be okay. Let's go,
Just
and
in
then turn it off and just go.
but full stack, because that risk tolerance is like super important in both your fields, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's more than just tolerance. I think
Yeah.
it's actually like
You
part of
thrive
it.
on it.
Or at
You're
least
seeking it too.
it's part of the whole package, right? Like
Right.
I don't know if you could do these things without that driving you, right? Like it's the same reason all the tricks, it's the same trick, it's just higher.
Well, bigger.
That
and
makes it
higher.
worth it, right? It's
Yeah,
bigger and
yeah.
higher. It's the actual same technical exercise. Same thing, right? Doing something in, part of the brain or around something where the stakes are higher makes it, makes you willing to push things that far.
That's right.
Do you like find yourself trying to level up? Like
Where
I've
do
done
you-
this 20 times.
Yeah,
I'm
where do you go?
interested. Yeah.
You don't level up, but you're certainly like it's not like, oh, I want to take more risk, but you're willing to take on bigger things. And it's like anything, right? You take it on, you get put in your place. And then you set back a little bit,
That's
and then
the
you
fall.
take it on,
right.
and you get put in your place.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's easier because it's not me that's falling. In other ways it's harder because you carry that, like every surgeon carries their graveyard, right? The things they've done. I could think of people that at my hand have been hurt and that has, so we thrive on it, but it also
But that's
leaves you impacted.
and that maybe sets a great surgeon apart from the average surgeon, right? Being able to like do the next thing, because when you delve into the unknown and do something that's never been done before, you can never be certain of the results, right? And there's a tremendous amount of risk and fear in uncertainty. If you're the first to do a particular procedure, how do you know it's going to work?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then there's the flip side, which is there's risk to staying in your comfort zone, right? You tell people, oh, sorry, there's nothing we can do.
That's right. But that's what I'm saying. Like the
Yeah.
greats will, and like skateboarding is the same thing. There's people that will do the same thing, and then there are others who are going to push the envelope.
Create a trick.
Well, yeah, people do the same thing, but just keep gradually getting more risky with what they're doing, and it's the same thing. It's just finding the next, the bigger and the craziest thing to do the same trick on. And then there's guys that thrive off of just like, how else is it possible to flip my board and stuff like that?
That's right.
Yeah.
So like again, like that's I think what separates like the pros or the greats from the average skater. Like I can distinctly remember the time when I realized, okay, I'm not going to become a professional skater. It's just not going to happen. Is when the first Plan B video came out, the questionable video.
Mm-hmm.
And because I skated in my small town, and like I was I was okay for my small town. I didn't really appreciate what was being done in other places. And then that video came out, and like I saw like the amazing things these guys are doing, and like the stairs and the rails and like the big stuff that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, okay. But everybody was a bit older than me, so I was like, okay, like maybe in a few years. And then I saw the skater Colin McKay, who was like basically my age, and he was young for that video. And so then I saw somebody that resembled me doing these same things. I just could not imagine myself doing it. And I went to the stair sets, and I was like looking down the stairs. I was like, okay, it's just not happening. I just didn't have the thing that it took.
So you became a doctor.
Well, I just didn't have like it's like you have to like bypass that self-preservation drive, right? And like some people have it, some people don't. Some people can assume those risks, but like you have it
to a degree. I mean, my friends have it. Like they do crazy stuff. I mean, I only did the like some risky stuff like at the start of mine, and then I kind of channeled it to more of a just how I like wanted to be skating, and like what I would want to watch someone else skating is kind of how I focused it after, with the help of some of my homies that were letting me do what I was doing. But yeah, there's definitely big rail guys and big gap guys. Yeah.
But not only that, I mean, just the technicality of what was happening, right? Like, just some people can do it, some people just maybe they can't. I don't know.
Well, skating's got so many different. Right. You can be a pro in skating and not know how to do 50% of anything.
Yeah.
You could just have like bare minimum skill, but just be like the cool guy, and you could still be pro.
True.
You know what I mean?
You missed out.
Yeah, you could have. Yeah.
No, I don't think I could have. I couldn't have. I mean, I just didn't have it. But it's not about me. So, one of the things that you said.
Reminder.
Okay. All right. One of the things you said to me once, which stuck with me, was there are people. I think you were talking about day one. I can't remember, but there are people who need some element of difficulty and risk to be able to do their tricks. Can you describe that?
Well, it was day one's switchboard slide or switch flip. There's a trick. I mean, he will, when he's trying to do it's like a board slide or something like that. There's a trick that he has that he can't really. He can do them, but he's just like, it stresses me out to do them on the flat. But he'll climb onto the roof of a portables, and with a gap in the middle of the portables, and he'll put like a rail across it, and he'll do it every time.
And that's where your patience come from.
But when it's like on the ground, he's like, oh, like just can't do it. So there's literally a video part. His entire part is basically him on the roof of going between portables and carrying picnic tables onto the roof of these portables in the schools and skating over them. And yeah, so that he's one of those guys for sure.
I think neurobiologically it's interesting because it's the same move, but he needs that element of risk to be able to focus and do the move. Do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, he can do it.
He can do it. I mean,
he's like top tier, so he can do all of them. But when it comes down to it, like if there's a risk factor to it, that's going to happen multiple times very quickly. Yeah.
Wonder if that's the gratification piece, though, that comes from it. Like, look at how risky this is, and I'm still landing it, and like surge of feelings.
Probably, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it's the external need. It's something that allows you to focus.
That's right.
Like, you can stay focused. I think about surgery. I can totally lose myself for 4 or 5 hours in a case when it's really on the line.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm just doing whatever, it's like, just like anything else. You're like, when's this over? It's like you need an externality to really focus you in.
Mm-hmm. And I can, I can draw a parallel to, I don't know if this makes sense, to like maybe neurobiology of ADHD. If you think about the ADHD, because ADHD, I think is paradoxical in some ways, because you have kids who have difficulty with focus, they have difficulty with attention, they struggle with hyperactivity, right? But if you give them a stimulant, they calm down and they can focus, right? So why is it's paradoxical, why is it that a stimulant can help somebody calm down? And the other paradox in ADHD is that although they struggle with focus, they also have the ability to hyperfocus. right? So these ADHD kids can also like sit down, say at a video game or something they're deeply interested in and like focus on it for hours, but they can't sit in a class. And I think that, you know, some of that comes neurobiologically out of the need for like increased dopamine release. Like you need a certain level of stimulation to maintain your focus. So if you're sitting in class, what's being said is not that interesting for you. You can't focus. You need more stimulation. So you're going to start moving to give yourself stimulation. You're going to get up, walk around, or blurt things out. And that's the level of stimulation that can keep you satiated in a sense. What's another way of getting stimulation? It could be chemically. So if you give somebody a stimulant, now it's providing them that dopamine release. Another way could be like engaging in an activity that's deeply meaningful and interesting to you. Because now like that level of interest is now captivating you. So you're getting the stimulation that you need to focus. Maybe another way of getting that stimulation is through like danger.
So
Like
climbing on the portable is
That's right.
instead of taking
that's right.
stimulant. That makes sense to me.
Right? Like for some kids, hitting a tennis ball is all they need to feel gratified. Others need to like ollie downstairs. And when
Sounds
that
like you're really talking down to the tennis
I'm not-
kids.
it was basketball.
We've lost a bunch of viewers with this podcast.
No, but it's because, but even among skaters, like, okay, some may need, ollieing is fun. That's what they need. Some may need to ollie downstairs. When that gets boring, now you got to go on portable and like do a gap. So you're upping the risk. And I think neurobiologically, like neurochemically, something happens every time you increase the risk. What do you think?
I think there's like makes me reflect on myself. And
In what way?
Maybe I was distractible as a kid, still am distractible.
Yeah.
Always like,
Yeah.
I think there's probably some truth to it, right? I can hyper-focus, but the rest of the time I'm a total shit show.
That's right. Me too.
You too, yeah.
Chris was like, not me.
Yeah.
he relates to the shit show part of me. But like injecting that danger factor, it's just such a common theme in skateboarding. Like if you think about Tony Hawk's ramp, he's got this big half pipe, a vert ramp, but he's got a gap, right?
8 feet.
8 foot gap. So what that means is there's like an 8 foot, gap where there's nothing. And so you can do the same trick without a gap and get the same amount of air, cover the same amount of distance, and it's fine. But they choose to do it over the gap where the danger level is exponentially higher, because if you fall, now you're falling, 15 feet, 20 feet onto concrete. So like and that gap doesn't serve any other purpose, I don't think, except for increasing the danger aspect of a particular trick. I mean, would you say that's true?
That's about right. Grinding over a gap is way cooler than grinding over no gap.
Although the actual physicality of the
there's
move,
nothing
The technical
different.
difficulty is identical.
Yeah, everything's the same. Yeah.
that's right. Technical difficulty is the same, but if you fall, you could die. I mean, you could hurt yourself.
You hurt yourself, yeah.
Real bad. I guess that sort of relates to what you were saying about technically complex surgery. You're focused for the full 4 hours and you're not thinking of anything else. But
4-8.
4-8.
Yeah, like what's your longest surgery? How long do you have to be in that state?
In the States, usually not that long because there's a long run in and run out, which are quasi involved. But like, yeah, some of the longer ones are 8-12 hours.
Because you guys are like skating for how long when you're out there?
Oh, I don't know what. As a kid, I was skating for 12 hours, but when these pros, I'm pretty sure will probably skate for like 5.
Still, even
Not
that.
5 or less. Some will 1.
Like to be focused on something for 5 hours and time feels like nothing in that moment. It's like you've been out there for 10 minutes, but it's been 5 hours.
But the intensity of what he's doing for the 8-hour period seems to be pretty consistent, right? Like it'd be like if you mess up once, skating, we're literally, we're hanging out and like we'll drive to the spot, we'll get kicked out. We'll go to this spot, we get kicked out of there. We find a spot. Yeah, we find a spot to skate. We're going to skate it. Maybe one of us will skate it for an hour. If we land it first try, that's it. We go home. So it could literally be like a 30-minute day.
It could be, but
It could also be.
Okay. This is an interesting story. So you developed the AKI, or rhabdo, right?
I know what you're talking about. What the hell's an AKI?
Acute kidney injury.
Oh, yeah.
For those of us
yeah.
at home.
You developed rhabdo skateboarding. You can tell the story because I think it illustrates this point
What I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was so usually when you film a video and skating, they do like a whole lead up the whole week. So they release all these little clips just so that you could have like the big finale on like the Friday or the Sunday is your whole video for your company's release. So we had one of those going on, and I was trying to do some of these fillers for the week, and I just was overexerting myself all the time. I don't drink or do drugs or anything like that. So literally all I drank was like water and juice and stuff. But during the session, I was going too hard, and I just started feeling crazy, and then like the next day couldn't skate, felt super bloated, and for like a week I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on. So then I came back here and I went into.
Because you didn't have insurance, right?
I didn't have insurance in the U.S. No, so I stayed there for 3 days, and then I flew home because I couldn't sleep because I was like, whatever.
Slowly dying.
Yeah. And then I got back here and I didn't even go in. I was like, well, whatever. Things are working still, so I'm okay. But I'm feeling crazy, like bloated. And I was like, there was a white spot on a Canby and like, was it 12th?
Yeah.
That white spot, I was in there, and my friend was going to go play tennis.
One of those tennis kids.
Yeah,
That's right.
and I ran across the street to go meet him because he lived right there, and my legs gave out in the middle of Canby, like, ooh, and I had to catch myself, and then I went over, and he's like, you should probably go in, and I went in, and they were like, yeah, you're messed up. Your both kidneys failed. It's been a week.
So that's not a half-hour session of skating.
No, that was I skated that day. I skated that day. I put in my work, but I've done longer sessions. I've done shorter, and nothing's ever happened. But I just didn't drink the water that one day. But yeah, I was in there for like 8 days, and acute tubular necrosis or whatever they called it.
Of all the ways you can hurt yourself skating, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Not drinking water. Yeah.
But it's that obsessive nature, right? Like you don't even stop to drink water.
Yeah. Well, you think you're invincible when you're a kid, right? Until you like.
Yeah, I think it's more than that.
Internally.
Most kids think they're invincible, but most kids will stop to drink water.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
No, it's like that drive, though. It's like when you're so into that zone, you're like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is gone. I don't need to use the bathroom. I don't need to drink. I don't need to eat. Time doesn't matter. I'm here. It's the same thing when you're performing a surgery, I'm guessing. I'm in the zone. I don't need to get a drink. I'm doing the thing.
No, it's the. I know what the final product's going to be, and I know how it's going to feel, and I'm going to get there.
Gotta get it there.
I'm going to get there. I don't care. I mean, I'll drink water after. And that's just how everyone. I mean, there's certain levels of persistence that people have, but I like going until I just nonstop. It's how you film skating is where you really see the person doing it, because some guys will go nonstop. Some guys will go by themselves. Like I would go by myself with the filmer and just like nonstop go hours, 4 hours, trying every one after another. And then there's guys that'll go and be like, I'll do one and then, like stretch a little bit and hang out and then do another one. And, so there's different ways of doing it, but there's still, their session might go for multiple hours because, they might order pizza or something. No, I don't know what they're doing. But like obsessive, because that was work for me. I'm going to go here and do this because this is what they expected me to do. And then once I finished, I go and have my fun skating with my friends at the park where I can go for hours. But the work was intense. Like, all right, I need this, I have this, I want this for my part that I have coming out. And I know how to do it. I just have to wait for, I don't know, whatever movement is going to make me land that, whether it's like my shoulders are like an inch off or my head. It's just finding the...
And I think that technical sort of intricacy of skateboarding is something that people don't appreciate as well, because people may often sort of think about skateboarding as like an impulsive sport where people are just hugging themselves off of stairs, but it's like it's all about like falling, feeling pain, getting up, but then readjusting and like analyzing what happened. Talk about that, that 1 inch sort of difference.
I don't think like a lot of the guys that skate, they don't care. It's like, I just like skating. I don't care why I like it. I don't.
Right.
they don't care. It's like, this is what I like doing because we all do the same thing. I like how it feels when I do it, and I like how it feels when I land it. I like how it feels knowing that I can do these tricks. I know there's like I like how it feels when you go into the park and people, just the way you walk into the park, people know you can do these, that sort of stuff. Like it's all like, it's all different. The vibes, like whatever there's all sorts of avenues to get that from. But, yeah, I don't know. It's,
but that process of learning and finally landing a trick, aren't you like constantly analyzing what did I do wrong? How can I reposition myself?
You can. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah, but you could go weeks. Well, what's crazy is you'll try something and you're like, my foot's here all the time in this spot, and this is how I do this trick all the time, and it always works. Why the hell can't I do this trick into something else with my foot in that spot? And then you're gonna keep doing it because that's how you know how to do the trick. And then literally like 3 days later, when you've been trying for like 17 hours total, your foot has to be like this. And that little inch movement changed the whole thing. But you don't find that. It's like hard to find it. Maybe it happened by accident, maybe it didn't, but it's just those little tiny things. So if you don't search for that stuff, you could be banging your head against a wall for hours trying to do things. But so ideally you should be, if it's not working, then something that you're doing isn't right.
Yeah.
So you have to search and find out what it is. But it sucks that it could just be like a foot twist, and you spent like a whole week trying something that you're like, oh my God. That goes, now that if you film it, it'll go away in 3 seconds because of Instagram. They're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There goes a week of my life. Yeah.
But I think this happens in medicine as well, where you create something. So we, like in our program, we've created a few protocols, treatment protocols that other people have now used, adapted. Now they're being used in different hospitals around the world. So skateboarding is the same, right? Because you'll eventually create something, and then it goes back into the pool of tricks, and somebody will then build upon that. It's like publishing a paper, and then a scientific paper, then like it goes into literature. Somebody will read that paper, will learn a certain technique or protocol, whatever it might be, and then they'll sort of take it the next step, right?
Expand on it, build on it.
Yeah.
But how does that? Like, I'm ignorant, but
That's all good.
So, you're saying you move your foot this much, and so you presumably you watch your other guys do videos and you pick up their tricks.
Yeah.
But like, can you actually learn? Because your weight's different, everything's different. So you pick up what they've done, but you have to kind of reinvent it for yourself, or can you actually do it just like?
Well, because like the kickflip is just like when you kickflip, right? There's you
did that, right?
There's
you did that for skateboarding.
Not reliably, but yes, successfully.
So they're learning a kickflip. Like my kickflip's different than his and yours. And
that's what I mean. You can't just because I tried that.
Watch
him.
No.
You have exactly to what he's doing. No.
It's the movement, but you have to like, that's the hard part. That's where your journey starts. Is like, okay, I know how to do these two tricks. I know how to put them together. My kickflip is different than this guy's. So how do I get my kickflip up onto the ledge like that? And so that's the part where you're like, okay, my foot is, usually my kickflips are back farther, so I have to move my foot up. So now I have to learn how to get the same flick with my foot up higher to get it on the ledge to that. So it's just, that's the personal journey part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The nightmare.
I think, I would argue that it's a little bit deeper than that as well.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Like, for instance, again, I like making parallels between science and skateboarding. One of the protocols that we developed in our program is like starting a particular medication buprenorphine. So in the past, this is what we'd learned. You have to go into withdrawal to get this medication. That's how it was done. Okay, so then we did it in a way where you don't have to experience withdrawal, but it took a week. And okay, you can do it, but you have to wait a week. And then we did it in 48 hours. And then, okay, it can be done, but you have to wait and then we did it in 24 hours, and then it's published. Okay, now we can, but it wasn't possible until somebody proved that it could be done. Mm-hmm. Or like with Rodney inventing the kickflip, there was no kickflip. It wasn't possible, or even just a flatland ollie. It was not possible to jump off of the ground without grabbing your board, right? And then Rodney Mullen, he proved that it can be done. right? And then others then were able to do it, but nobody was able to do it until it was done, right? Like,
Yeah, I heard a story once that nobody cared, and then it only took off when people started to care that you could do that.
that's right.
Because I remember, I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I don't know if I maybe dreamt that or something, but I think someone told me like he did the Ollie, right? And everyone was like, well, that's crazy, whatever. And then it only really started to be what it was is because people started to care about it and needed it for something.
Yeah, for the next level.
Yeah.
That happens with innovation all the time, I feel like. When somebody's like too far ahead of their time, they'll innovate something and either people won't care, they won't recognize it, or they'll criticize it. And it's until you can fully appreciate the applications of what's been developed where others will adapt it, right? So, okay, so what? You can just jump a little bit off the ground. But when people realize what that meant in terms of like what else you can
Leveling up. Yeah.
Suddenly everybody cares. I mean, he was like so far ahead of his time. Like, and then he did the kickflip. Nobody, and they called it the magic flip, right?
Yeah. I think so, didn't it?
Yeah, because it was like magic. It was like people could not understand how you can, board goes up and it flips, and without you touching. Because before people were doing like finger flips, right? They were flipping with their hands, and now it's like it's flipping on its own. It's like magic, but it wasn't possible until it was done. I think, and that's just so common in skateboarding.
No, it is, yeah, because that's why every generation. I mean, I'm sure with what you guys do, every generation's like, wow.
Build on.
That's their starting point, So they start there, and then they're like, well, it took me 6 years to learn that, and this kid's doing it when he's 4.
Yeah, that must hurt a little.
But
or really rewarding, depends on how you look at
But
it.
they also come at it fresh eyes, right? So
Yeah,
you come
yeah.
into it with all this baggage, you learn this, and you know it's really hard. Kid sees you do it, and it's like, yeah, you can do that, I'll do that, and boom.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. It's just believing that it's possible. I think is really important.
The idea, it's having the idea and being able to create the idea and make it real is the most precious part of it all.
It is the most precious. I think that's what, I think that's one of the traits that skaters have, which is like super important in science and medicine, is the creativity, right? Because again, not to put down other sports, but there are many sports where there's a rigid line of how things are done, right? And you're judged based on how well you can do things to a particular standard. So you have to learn things a particular way, right? Whereas in skateboarding, what's most celebrated is when you do something new, a new combination of moves, right? Or a new trick. So that creativity, I think, is one of the things that's most celebrated in skateboarding, right?
Yeah, one of them, yeah. Even a movement, just any sort of push or anything could be doing it. Well, how creative can you get in your...
He's going in through the nose, so
Well,
pretty creative.
Right.
It's again, the same thing, right? You don't know what you can do, and there's loads of things that we don't have an answer for. And until someone comes along and is like, wouldn't it be crazy if?
But how
and the first person to do stuff gets trashed, right? They're like, well, you're crazy, you're insane. And then the second person does it, and it's like, well, okay, maybe it's not totally insane. And then 5 years later, people are like, I can't believe they didn't always do it this way. And then some new person comes along and it's like, it's the next thing, right? And that's how, if you look back, neurosurgery is young, but if you look back, even 20 years ago, things were completely different. And, some of it's technology. We have technology we didn't used to have, computers, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, surgery is still a pretty basic, you've got technical instruments. It's what you can do with your hands. And technology allows us to do a little bit more, but ultimately it's it's pushing the envelope and
But how do you push it if there's so many, if there's so many regulations on what you're doing, how do you, what do you push? Because you're like, oh, I can't go here because this.
Well, it's so there's a tumor somewhere, there's something that, take a tumor, for example, that's really close to some of the really important arteries and nerves, and you think, you look and you say, oh, well, if we try and do anything, it'll be a disaster. You don't do anything, and everybody agrees, time and time again that you can't go there, you can't do this. And, sometimes the risk is worth it. And often there's a specific story that gets you there. And then, people start to say, oh, well, maybe it is possible. And then, that becomes accepted, and then more people do it. And, and it's always done in sort of, it's a little less free, I guess, than skateboarding, right? You have to, yeah, but there's the like detailed research, and then there's the individual day, right? Like where you're just doing something a little bigger than you've done before, or that, is a little bit different. And there's things that happen on the fly. And it's only after the fact that you realize, oh, well, what we did was different, and I'm going to start doing it that way on purpose.
Like you can't really think on. Do you think on the fly and stuff? Just like, oh, I have to do this, but I'm going to get in.
Well, you're always like, you have a plan, but like anything else complicated, you can't actually be like step A, step B, step B, step C. You get in there and you're in there until you're out of there. And when things happen, you respond to them.
I feel like it's the same thing. You're like having to think on your feet to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, you have the idea of where I want to get to, and you have a general idea of how you're going to get there. But, you don't know, like, whether it's going to be bloody or not bloody, whether it's going to be really firm and hard to cut, or whether it's going to be soft like porridge. All those things, like on any given day, it's just a slightly different journey.
I think it's fascinating for me because I think it's similar. Like these parallels, I think are super robust because again, skateboarding can appear impulsive, right? Like somebody ollieing a gap or like stairs. It's like somebody who doesn't appreciate skateboarding may think that, okay, this guy's like totally insane. He's like, he doesn't care about his life and he's just doing it for the sake of doing it. And I can't believe he survived. But I think what they don't appreciate is that there was a journey that got the person to that gap. And maybe they started with like much, much smaller gaps, and they built their way up and they adjusted along the way and they planned this out. And I could be wrong, but like they planned. So this wasn't like a impulsive one-time move, but there was like a journey that got the person to be able to do that particular gap.
It could be. I mean, it could just be like I've always wanted to do that, and then you skate around and you get your skill sets up, and then you go back and do it. But yeah, that could be. I don't think it's too like seeing a gap, and yeah, probably seeing a gap in like the UC Davis gap, that Jocelyn 360 flip is like, I don't even know how big it is, like 25. It's huge, and so I don't know that people will see it and be like, I have this trick good enough that I could do it down whatever I wanted to, and they're like, that is humongous, I'm going to do it down that. Or it could have been in their town, be like, one day I'm going to do that. But
there was a journey to get there.
It was a journey to be able to get that trick to the degree that you could do it and feel comfortable going down that. But then you have to train your body and shut the brain off to stop thinking about the consequence of your body going down that. And once you turn that off and you actually do it, it's usually getting the first try out of the way. And then you already know, okay, this is how I fall on this. So then you get comfortable within like 30 minutes. You jump down at like 25 times, and hopefully you roll away pretty soon. But yeah, it's getting the first one out of the way, and that's the one that a lot of people can't get out of the way, and they're like, that's the 6 stair that you were talking about. You're like, I can't do this. Yeah. Or the 2 stair or whatever.
Oh,
3.
Pretty sure it was more like 15.
Right.
Okay.
UBC 15.
That's right.
George shot a videoed me for my first ad there. He's in my first ad.
Is that the bookstore? Which stairs?
It's the Chan. It's right by the what is that? It's right by the Chan Center. Down.
Going down towards the water.
Yes, this wooden handrail. Yeah, he's in my first ad filming me for Almost. Yeah.
Oh, for Almost.
Yeah.
Okay, that's sick. Okay.
I'll show you later.
Yeah.
You'll see him sitting on the stair. And he might have filmed me jumping off the roof across the street. The roof, the stairs are here, and literally across that street at UBC, there's like a huge roof. I think you filmed me do that too. I'm climbing on the roof at UBC.
Yeah, that's
I shot my first cover at UBC too.
magazine cover.
Yeah, concrete powder cover.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, did you ever get kicked out of UBC?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I was going to school there too. I was paying to get kicked out.
So, and how did it feel lecturing at universities with me? We went on this tour where we spoke at a bunch of schools in the Northeast and in California. So we did like Harvard, we did Yale, Cornell, Columbia, and so we did Stanford as well. So like, what was that like?
To what? To like undergrad students,
faculty
medicine.
Medicine, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
Well, can you plug what you talked about first? What did you guys talk about?
well,
I'm curious. How did this mesh?
okay.
We're getting backstory here.
Backstory.
A little bit. You're jumping in blind.
We'll get into the backstory. Okay, but
Primary prevention is what we, to addiction is what we presented on. But what I presented, he presented on his stuff that he's doing. And I was just a side piece that's like got 3 minutes.
okay, well, it wasn't 3 minutes. All right, well, okay, I'll provide the backstory. So, I'm addiction medicine, and I do research in addiction medicine. Like all my research is focused on treating people. Well, it's on fentanyl use disorder and treating fentanyl. Like, a lot of it's through pharmacology, and now we're doing medical devices and digital technologies, and Chris is involved in some of that as well. But all of it is focused on treating people once they have use disorder, once they're addicted to fentanyl. So then the thought was like, what about preventing addiction from happening in the first place? So primary prevention. And like, generally speaking, it's been done quite poorly, primary prevention. It's been like campaigns like Just Say No, or like This Is Your Brain on Dry. That's right, you remember that one? That's right.
The watermelon, the egg, I remember them all.
So then,
Is everyone safe?
It's okay.
Is it one of those surgeries you need to rush to?
okay. Anyways, not to belabor this point, but
You had a question. I kind of got you off the flow of that. Do you remember it? You're asking Chris how it felt to be at all those places talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ivy League schools.
yeah, because you're getting
Side piece, dude.
You were not a side piece.
You were 3 minutes. Come on.
It was more than first one. It was more than 3. It was like the last, it was like 15-minute lecture, and the last 15 minutes.
Oh, 15 minutes.
Okay.
How did it feel?
10 minutes.
There's your 50 minutes of fame. Gone.
But that's what captivated the audience, right?
They weren't listening to you, right?
Well, like you're at these Ivy League schools, and like we're showing up to Harvard, like Chris wearing like a death metal vest,
Right on.
looking like a homeless person. So.
Dress appropriately.
That's right. And they're looking at us like, what is this? But they're like super stoked on the messaging and their approach, and it's something that like they may have never thought about. And forget all our research and innovation. That's what they left with. And after sort of these series of talks, I went to a conference, like a national addiction conference in Texas, where we were speaking. Chris wasn't there, but the buzz amongst a lot of these researchers was, what these guys are, the professional skateboarders that went to Harvard, and what they spoke about and what their approach is. And it wasn't about like my research and like my protocols. It was like,
this is coming from his mouth too. I don't know any.
Yeah.
And I'm taking his word for them being stoked on it too, because I was just like, I was just talking to them about skating, what I do every day. Well, and I was hoping that he could monitor the reaction, but now I don't know if I believe him.
Well, it was, and what was telling is like, I think it was one of the profs from Cornell. Afterwards, she was like, Puya, like now I understand where your creativity comes from and your like high risk protocols because you're a skateboarder, right? Like our protocols have changed the way we practice addiction medicine right now and internationally. But she attributed our innovation to the fact that I was a skateboarder.
So it's all him.
It's because you know me now, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks to, I don't know.
No, but this is that same innovation thing where
That's right.
Where you're thinking different, right? And you're not, and this is like the young kids that don't come with the baggage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got this dogma, everybody's done stuff the same way forever, and everybody kind of looks the same and talks the same and does the same and agrees with themselves. And you come in with a bit of a different bent, and you see it differently, and probably at first people look at you like you're crazy.
That's right.
They still do.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're not all the way over the innovation curve, right? But
Interesting story. We were speaking at ISAM, International Society of Addiction Medicine. It's the biggest international conference, and it was in Morocco. So it was me and a few of our fellows. So we flew there. We flew to Paris, from Paris to Morocco. And on the flight from Paris to Morocco, there was a bunch of people that were going to attend the conference. So I was with my fellows, and they're just dressed like regular students. And I was dressed how I normally dress. I had my like Skull Skates hoodie on, and I had my backpack with my skateboard on the back. So whatever. We got off the plane, and on the day that I was speaking, I had my suit on and my name tag, and this lady sort of comes up to me. She's like, "Wow, you've transformed." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I saw you on the airplane, and man, you look so different." I was like, "Yeah, well." And then she looked at my name tag. She's like, "You're Dr. Azar." And then she opened up the program. She's like, "Look, I've circled your talk, and I've read all your papers, and I've been really looking forward to." But what was interesting for me, it was like that moment on the plane. She probably saw me, and she probably thought like, "Who's this punk skater?" Right?
clown.
Who's this clown? No idea that like this clown was the person who wrote the papers that she's been reading, who she's looking forward to hear speak. So it was kind of a letdown in some ways, because it was like, fuck, man, there's still that perception of skateboarders, and like, why is it so surprising to her that I'm the person who's speaking? At the same time, it was vindication that like, yeah, like fuck you, like yeah, it's me. You go fuck yourself.
Bleep.
Yeah. A lot of skaters like kind of want that. They like, I don't give a
Part of the
I don't give a
belonging,
shit
right? and
about what they
secretly,
think. Yeah.
you kind of like that she does.
Yeah. Well, that's why
Maybe.
you brought it up.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's interesting because then you put a lab coat on and it kind of doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, all right.
No, but seriously, you're talking about this perception, and yet oftentimes I'll find you like throwing the lab coat on so that you don't get perceived a certain way. It's funny.
Well, I think there's maybe I like that dichotomy. Of like
Perhaps.
maybe
One
this
foot in each world,
That's right.
and you want both groups to know that you've got 1 foot.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Hey,
like typically you present at like these huge, I mean, the last one you didn't, which I thought was wild, but the hat was still sitting there. You typically wear this hat. You wear your skate hat, you wear your
At my
thrasher.
presentations, yeah.
Always in a suit, the hat, or the hat's on the table.
That's
So
his
you-
heavy metal vest.
Yeah, exactly. But like truly.
It's true. I think it is growing up skateboarding, and I was never a great skater. Like, I don't want to portray myself as like, I was never, ever anywhere close to someone like Chris. But it was part of my identity, and I grew up skateboarding. And especially like in the early 90s, skaters were like these punk kids, and we were treated as like punk kids. And so it was kind of like vindication for me to be able to like be the skater who's now presenting at these conferences. So I think for me, for that reason, it's still important to, like my first identity is skateboarding. So to wear that skate hat when I'm presenting at a conference, I think it's important for me. So maybe that's why I do it.
Like pay homage to where you came from,
I think so.
in your community. Yeah, I like that.
Did you ever skate?
Not well.
You did though.
Oh yeah. When I was a punk kid,
Yeah,
There
I
you go.
skated, and then I was mountain biking,
Mountain biking.
and that sort of, and I think part of that comes back to the personality trait. Like, I started mountain biking. I was going to mountain bike.
Yeah.
I was going to be good at it. Again, came to the recognition at a certain point that I wasn't going to do it for a living, but it was all in. And I think that's just part of like my person. And I'm all in on whatever I'm doing. And so I wasn't skating anymore. My board didn't get touched. I was
Do you know what board it was? Remember?
This is where the good stuff comes
Chris
up.
always asks this question.
So my first board, I don't know what it was called. It was Vision, and it was just like Vision, like all on the bottom in red and black.
What year is this?
Oh, I'm gonna date myself. So
okay.
I would have been, so like 90 maybe.
Well, yeah. Just
Yeah.
before the big pants, small wheels.
That's right.
Yeah, big wheels still had big wheels, and then like
Yeah.
my next board was a girl board, I think, with small wheels. That was my first board with small wheels, and then I moved on. That
Yeah.
board never got ridden much because I also got a mountain bike in '92, and then it was all on there.
Do you still mountain bike, or did you have to switch from one obsessive thing to this?
Well, the story's longer than that, but I stopped riding for a number of years just through like life, and then got back into it. But and it was interesting. It was one of these things. Like I left it and the North Shore was, it was tricks were hard and stuff. And you come back and everything's the same tricks, but they're like 20 feet off the ground. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like, why are we doing this? I don't understand. And then with, so a lot less now. But, and then gravel bikes came out, which are basically mountain bikes from the 90s. So that's more of a fit.
You grew up in North Van?
No, I grew up in Kitts.
Kitts?
Yeah. Ride across every day, ride the shore, ride home.
Do you ever ride your mountain bike at Sealand Skate Park?
Where's that?
It's off of Mountain Highway in North Van, just over. It's a second narrows on that.
Oh, right under the second.
Not under, but like
not that one.
Along the stream there.
Because there's like right as you get onto the second narrows, but that's all bike. I don't know where the skate.
Oh, this.
Are.
Well,
There's
it was
some dirt jumps there.
Yeah, no. This is
Okay.
this is a Congo. At the late '80s, I guess that
Yeah.
thing was popping off. But
Sorry.
Saving lives.
Doing the good work.
you both are.
No, you know what? Like, you reminded me.
Who did?
You were talking about mountain biking. I was trying to buy this
Oh
bike.
my God,
Oh,
there's
he's gonna
that ADHD going.
I just closed the deal.
Yeah.
I just closed the deal.
And he gave the rock on sign, guys, so you're good.
Nice.
I got a bike. Okay,
Nice.
cool. We were going to talk about neurobiology of extreme sports. Like, you skateboarded, so you were sort of gravitating towards these sort of more high risk, novelty seeking type of activities, and then mountain biking, and then sort of neurosurgery. And then Chris, I think you had this question about like the way you framed it. Why are we morons?
Why am I? I'm not generalizing. You're like, well, I mean, not morons. I mean, that's
No.
bad. But it's like, yeah, like why? I don't know. I guess we're compulsive. Like, why would we go from like basically doing a lot? I mean, again, it's just a few of us that will focus 100%. Like, school's not there. Like, I'm going this way because this is what I want to do. Like, why does skating and like maybe mountain biking and stuff like that like attract these type of people?
I'm not a neurobiologist.
Yeah.
So you probably know more than me about this because this is more personality traits. But I think like the school not being part of it, I think is almost separate from it, right? It's more that you're 100% in to whatever it is. And so you look at something that's the sort of normal path and you look at it and you're like, well, that's not necessary for my journey. So cast it off and focus on my journey, right? If your journey had been one, you really wanted to be a neurosurgeon, you wanted to be a astronaut, whatever it is, you'd be like, okay, I gotta absolutely execute at school because that's the necessary pieces for this laser focus that I have to be the best at this one thing. So I think that's more that, like using the word obsessive because it makes it sound crazy, but like, and I know we're not supposed to say crazy either. So
Well,
it's complicated.
Okay, we used the F word already, so you're fine.
Okay. But like it's more about you being super focused on this one goal and you're, whether consciously or unconsciously, evaluating everything else and being like, yeah, that's not going to help me. Move on, right?
Yeah.
Like, does it make you a better skater? No.
the way, in some respect, I think of it as like fluidity of thought. In that, and I think there's like maybe a selective process of like why certain people will gravitate towards things like skateboarding or neurosurgery versus others don't. So, for example, and I think fluidity of thought is on a spectrum. And if you think about an activity that, there's rules, there's schedules, there are boundaries, there are people telling you what to do, how to do things, versus things that are completely abstract and fluid, right? So take an activity, for instance. I hate to do this again, but like tennis, basketball, like an organized sport. You have to be at a particular place at a particular time. You have to do things in a particular way, and you have people telling you how to do these things.
Well, man, that's like basically all his training.
It is and it isn't. And I think we'll get there because
neurosurgery. You could just say that instead of tennis.
Well, yes and no, but I
think basketball, like it's interesting. I think part of it is we know what we know, right? Like I don't know much about tennis or basketball, but basketball, we think of it as a very organized sport. But then you think of the number of kids that are just
Helicopter,
at the park, just shooting hoops. It's the same thing obsessively. There's less risk, but but it's, not everybody gets there through the like organized team way.
That's true, but there's still rules.
Yeah.
You have to be right, and there's still boundaries to it, right? And you have to follow the rules, and so things are on a spectrum. Yeah, like there is some flexibility of thought in basketball and creativity, but I think there are still. I think the far extreme of that would be something like skateboarding, whereas like there's no rules, there's nobody pushing you, nobody telling you what to do, nobody expecting you to be at a particular place at a particular time. There aren't really any tryouts. Maybe at the highest levels when you're trying to get sponsored, there might be. But I think it takes a particular type of person, and I think it's a person who has that fluidity of thought to be able to function without the rules and boundaries and guidelines. And but I think that type of mindset, when applied to something like medicine and like, let's just say neurosurgery, is I think those are the individuals that may be able to think, because medicine and science in general is also very rigid, right? You have guidelines, you have boundaries, rules you can't cross. In fact, it's often frowned upon when you go outside of guidelines and when you do things off label. But so people who gravitate towards these fields are often a lot more rigid. But if you have somebody who takes maybe like the skateboard mentality, the fluidity of thought, and applies it to something like medicine and can think outside the boundaries, but isn't like reckless. Like skateboarding isn't reckless, I don't think, because again, we talked about how like this gap, you build up to the gap, and it's actually highly calculated. So in the same way, if you take that approach to neurosurgery, then you're like you said, doing things that not many other people are doing, and you're demonstrating that it can be done, and then other people will start doing it. So I don't know. That was kind of you guys got to stop me when I go on these.
I love these tangents. They're
This whole
great.
thing is just tangents.
Yeah, that's what a podcast is, right? Yeah. I think that's that, like, though we talked about like flow state, and I feel like we didn't really touch on it, and there's so many elements of it, and we're all like, you guys are all bringing it up, but it's like that lateral thinking, and like you totally mute self-preservation. So there's just all these things that I wish we could like delve into, because you talk about risk tolerance, you talk about experimenting, we're talking about like pushing the envelope a little bit, and I think that's from being in that state of mind, right? So you're all saying that. What does that look like? How are we, like, what does that mean? We use this terminology, but what is that? What is flow state?
What is it? Well, you probably know more about flow state than I, the neurobiology of it, but
I don't know.
Poor guy, he's like, I'm a neurosurgeon, not a neurobiologist.
People are surprised how little neuroscience we have. It's, I'm a plumber.
yeah.
There's a bowl of Jello,
I love it.
and I work around the bowl of Jello. I try not to hurt anything.
Right, okay.
It's the thoughts are just a bunch of electrical stuff, and what's like none of it's real, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But flow state, what is?
Yeah.
I don't know what is. When you're in it,
Yeah.
and you come out of it after, and you think, shit. Like if you asked me what time it was at the end of my surgery yesterday, I would have said somewhere between like noon and 9.
Right.
No idea.
Right.
Turned out it was like 6 p.m.
Well, they talk about like the imagination network versus the executive network versus the salience network, and like the imagination network is what's mostly associated with free flow of ideas, right? Where like your ideas aren't inhibited by preconceived notions. It's just almost like a dreamlike state where you have a flow of ideas. And then the executive network is where these ideas are then sort of modulated based on past experiences. So and I think they're sort of contralateral, but in a sense, if it's just the flow of ideas, it can become gibberish, right? So you need some executive network input. But people who are in their flow state, for instance, like freestyle rap, or jazz musicians, where they're just sort of freestyling, and they're kind of in this state where, it's not gibberish. I mean, they're making sense when they're freestyling, but it's just out of this. It's almost like a subconscious flow of thoughts, and people describe it as like almost like a dissociative or out-of-body experience, where you're not really aware of what's happening. Things are just happening. They're sort of flowing naturally. So I think being in that flow state, like athletes describe it, like I think Michael Jordan described it as being in the zone. I think I remember this clip of Senna, the Formula One driver, late Formula One driver, who was like doing this famous Monaco GP qualifying lap that was like much faster than everybody else, and he described it as like kind of like an out of body experience where it just sort of happened. He wasn't thinking it through. You probably experienced it in surgery, do you?
Yeah, no, I think that's the like where you just completely lose yourself, and at the end, it's and it's controlled. You're not just doing gibberish, but
That's right.
But you're so in it that you're not necessarily aware of the time passing, or even the individual steps you just are doing.
In that state, are you able to like problem solve better?
I think so. Like you like it's not a something that you actually think about, right? And so, but at the end of the day, rarely are people come out of something and was like, I was in the flow state and everything went horribly wrong, right? Like you don't hear people talking about the flow state when they hit the wall, but they're driving the Monaco GP. You don't, when you're skating, when you're in the flow state, things go better. They don't go worse. But I don't understand what it is or why it is.
That's right. I don't know. If
it's only after the fact that you sort of are like, oh yeah.
It's not a conscious process. You don't decide like I'm going to enter the flow state.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Like, can you relate to this?
That's like his whole profession.
A flow state?
Yeah.
I mean,
or whatever you.
They're all singular. They're all singular actions, So I mean, the flow state is everything works out, right? But I could see it happening more in like maybe a contest setting. When you're like, I need a multiple tricks to join together now, and then like when they're going, like all these first place guys, they seem to be. I don't know if it's just skill or whatever, but I could see it being in that realm. Because if it was flow state in the street skating realm, you'd be like, filming wise, you only have to do it once, then you're like, all right, I'm done.
But are there days where like it just all comes together?
There are days where it's like, wow, I feel good today. Yeah. And there's like things are flipping good, and you feel like you're supposed to be on your board today. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no one's going to be like, oh, I was flow stating it last night. It was amazing. They wouldn't. They were just like,
they wouldn't use that term.
Yeah, that was just like skating, and I was like, having a good ass time.
Yeah, to me, it's like when people describe being stoked.
Yeah, that's what. Because you're skating with your friends, and everyone's skating good, and usually they feed off each other. So
yeah, that's right. It's just the zone that you're in that just like everything's working. And
that's interesting that it feeds off itself, right? Yeah. Like, why does the fact that I'm having a good day make you skate better?
Well,
it does, but
I don't know.
Why is that? Like, it doesn't make sense. You're not physically any better. You're not paying more attention. Whatever. It's one of them things.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. And I think there's like a lot of research that has gone into it, where like people are trying to like harness the flow state and like how do you get into the flow state? But I don't know. To me, it's like something that just sort of happens naturally. It's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you can. Otherwise, then everybody would be like, "I'm going it." Yeah, sell
That's
it.
Right.
Yeah, sell it. OnlyFans.
Here we go.
And buzzer.
Okay. We almost made it, huh?
I do have to go change my parking.
Oh, here you and your fucking parking. Dude, like,
do we need a pause?
All right. Any last thoughts? Anything?
Did we blow your mind on anything today, or is nothing?
No, I'm fascinated.
He was like,
by
cool.
it. I'm fascinated by it. Both by skating, but also I think the addiction thing that you were talking about is interesting, because we're talking about risk, and like you take calculated risk, and in some ways that the primary prevention, you're asking people not to take risk, but using a risk heavy basis, right? You're like, skating, that's good risk, this is bad risk, and how do you square that circle?
That's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Well, neurobiologically, maybe it comes down to dopamine. Right?
They both do.
Right? They do. Right? And like we were talking about, it's not a great parallel, but like ADHD and how like there are different ways of achieving that stimulus that you want. This gratification that you get through risk, there are different ways of achieving that as well. You could do it chemically by using drugs. You get massive dopamine release, right? Like maybe, like the evidence shows that like opioids, cocaine, you have like 200-300% above baseline dopamine release. Methamphetamine, you have 1100% above baseline dopamine release. That's a level of gratification.
Hard to compete with.
That's right. But
Because that's why we do what we do is, at least by your assertion, it's to get the dopamine. And
but I think
people are pretty driven to get that.
What's the dopamine release for what you do? You should measure that. How do you measure that? How do you measure dopamine release in skating and stuff?
Is it a brain scan? Like, what do you do?
I'm pretty sure these were animal studies. This
Makes it way less interesting.
but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, a little mouse doing neurosurgery.
It was
All we have to do
We'll have
is
to look at
cut
the
your
paper.
brain into little slices. It'll be fine.
we have to look at the paper. I'm pretty sure it was animal studies, but it may not have been. I can see the graphs in my head, but I can't remember the study. But how do you measure the dopamine release of skateboarding? That would be interesting. But I think you can achieve similar level of gratification through non-chemical means that don't have the same consequences, right?
Isn't that quick of a? Because that seems like you'd probably get it immediately.
You know what? I should. You're
It
right.
sounds like we're selling it.
Yeah, I know.
You're right. And I don't think you can I don't think there's any way to achieve the same level of gratification and dopamine release that you can chemically, right? 1100% above baseline, like nothing competes with that.
You're talking about methamphetamine?
Methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Right.
They've already said there's nothing that competes with it.
There's nothing. So
But you also don't have the downside.
Exactly. That's how you sell it.
Yeah. You can still get the up without the down.
well, I think if people
And there's a different level of gratification that comes with it, right? Because part of the reason you're willing to take the risk is the dopamine. But the knowing, as you said, knowing you can do those tricks, knowing that's part of your
Yeah.
coming, I come out of a tough surgery and I feel like a rock star because I did something. And that's the dopamine. But then after that, it's that's part of my toolkit. That's part of who I am. That sticks around longer than the dopamine. That's I guess that's the big upsell,
that's the big difference. Right?
as
'Cause
opposed to feeling like absolute garbage
that's right.
and picking at yourself.
And then
Yeah. Picking.
well, the shame and guilt that you feel afterwards,
100%.
that our patients describe.
That's also just a dopamine measure, though, because you're not going to get positive endorphins from using stimulants, right? Or are you? Is your
Yeah.
body releasing natural endorphins?
Not natural. It's
Those
Yeah.
aren't natural
exogenous.
endorphins because they are endorphins.
Yeah.
Right, but we're releasing it naturally all the time. If you're skating, it's positive, happy feeling. You walk out of your surgery, you've done a thing, the person's all good, positive, happy feelings. I don't think that replaces it.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's no, I don't think it does.
Sense of community, there's so many
It's those
things.
the bigger, the
The
longer.
overarching picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's only the moment.
Yeah.
And then that's why you got to chase it again because you don't have the rest of
That's right. Yeah.
the lift.
Yeah. And we can close on this, but we presented recently at a conference, and it was lightning talks, so really short talks. We talked about primary prevention, and then the lady who was speaking after us, she'd heard our talk, and she was describing she had lost her son to an overdose, and she started her talk by saying, I listened to what you guys had to say, and I just want to say that my son, he had ADHD and he skateboarded. And I feel like having heard what you said, if he had met you guys, he would still be alive right now. So, I think that's a pretty powerful thing to hear from a mother who's lost their child. And I think it just reinforces maybe that there is something there in terms of what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe we do, maybe there's some power there to change people's lives. So we'll see.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. It's been fun. It's fascinating conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I think we would like to have you back as well if you're ever able to come back and kind of continue this discussion.
Yeah, anytime.
Amazing.
Come downstairs.
Yeah, I'll write you an email. You can ignore it.
You want to respond?
Yeah,
I did. I responded
Yeah, he
at
responded
11:30.
Did you?
Oh,
that's-
where?
You've got my number now in the email if you look.